I'm Jamie here, Chief Security Architect here at Cisco, and we have a jam-packed agenda for you with multiple demos to talk about what's new with Cisco SASE and the Zero Trust architecture. Stop me, talk over me as we're going through here. We can grab questions. I also have Brian Varenikoff. He's going to do one of the demos later on, and let's get into it. Quick agenda. We're going to go through SASE first, and then we're going to wrap it into Zero Trust with a focus on workforce and workload. If you don't know what that means for us yet, we're going to cover it. All right, here's a problem that has drummed up this new acronym called SASE, Secure Access Service Edge. It's because of our evolving perimeter. So I just want to get us all on the same page around what's happening. Remote users are all over the place. On-prem users are coming back to work, returning to work. Our applications are now everywhere, multiple clouds, they're hybrid, they're in colos. Data centers are still around, of course. And then we have mobile devices on top of that. So those remote users are using sometimes whatever they have, their home PC, their BYOD device. In other cases, it might be given to them. And then IoT devices jump onto the party just for fun. And they're also going onto those cloud applications increasingly. And how do we protect those? So SASE can be a boil the ocean discussion, kind of similar to Zero Trust. They kind of both have a lot of scope creep. So to rein it in just for the discussion for today, we're going to focus on two use cases. The two main use cases are secure remote worker. How do I make their connection seamless? And then how do I make sure that it's secure? All the way from user to app. Same thing on secure edge. I call it secure cloud edge, which is my branches, my data centers, my colos. How do I make sure that they're all secure? And with the branches, everybody's moving to direct internet access because they need quicker access to those applications that are in the cloud, that are SASE, SaaS applications. So how do I get that protection back and increase the user experience? So that's where SD-WAN comes in. The SD-WAN fabric gets a packet from point A to point B better than anything. Make sure that it's taking the best route with the least resistance. When we looked at SASE from an architecture perspective, we said, there's really three things that we need to solve here. One is around how do I get the user and the application connected? So the first C of the three C's is connect. How do I get the user to the application no matter where that user is? Off-prem, remote access. How do I get them connected? How do I get them connected if they're on-prem? So once they're connected, now we look at control. How do we make sure that that connection is secure and everything they do over it is also secure? And that's where we want to duplicate the security stacks that we've had on-prem for many years into the cloud. And then, oh, by the way, there's a bunch of new types of applications and new attack vectors. So we need a bunch of new functionality in that cloud security stack too. Wrap it all up in a zero trust mindset or methodology of least privilege, and then converge everything. That's the last C. How do we converge the network, the security, the connect, the control together as a single offer, single integrated system? This is our reference architecture on a page for both those use cases. I'm not going to go into this in much detail today anyways. And then I wanted to just point out one of the major use cases, which is that remote worker. That with a remote worker, no matter where they are, we're going to take that security stack that's in the top there, labeled umbrella, that has web gateway, layer 7 firewall, all of that goodness, put it in front of anything they do so we can make sure that they're secure. And then when they get to the application, that's where we bring in secure access, which does the MFA and soon passwordless and posture assessment, behavior analysis, all of that to make sure that that is a secure access into the application. And then finally, we need to make sure that they have really seamless, transparent access into applications that are private, that are on-prem or somehow private in the cloud. So we've taken a lot of pains to build out this cloud architecture the right way, do it the right way the first time. So in Umbrella, it is a worldwide architecture of containerized cloud native workloads. It is all in carrier neutral facilities that we control. We don't use any IaaS providers, and that powers the scalability and reliability that we have. Because of the diligence done there, we have 1,000+ peering relationships. In each one of these, all the big names you could think of, from an IaaS perspective, a SaaS perspective, that results in some huge performance gains by sending your traffic to the cloud security stack first. So I wanted to share with you a new third-party analysis of this user experience problem and how Umbrella can really help. Here's some of the test data on the right. It's around document complete times is one of the tests. They did many different tests. But document complete times is what you think it is. It's either a page that fully loads and how long did that take, or it's a document coming down. They ran multiple different tests. What you see here is pretty interesting because it shows you that by going through Umbrella, it's actually faster than if the user tried to go direct, which means they take whatever internet path they would have otherwise taken. So Box, 33% faster. AWS Console, 22%. Salesforce, 21%. And then on top of that, it was way more consistent performance as well, versus just going direct. So the moral of the story here is that if you can get the traffic up into the cloud security stack, then it's our job from there to get it to the application the most consistent, effective, performant way possible. We also, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I apologize. Perhaps you said it and I missed it, but what do you ascribe this better performance to? You can't magically make the packets go faster, so what's causing this?
You got it. It's all about the carrier neutral facilities all over the world, and we've taken great pains to get direct peering relationships with ISPs, CDNs, SaaS platforms, so that when you get there, when you get to the cloud and you're heading out, you're going to get to that application typically in one hop. Lots of new things happening in the capability side of Umbrella. So why are we doing this? It's for security. And we have added in multiple different new things just in the last few months even. So DNS layer security, that's what we're best known for. Secure web gateway functionality has been there for a long time as well. But we now have layer 7 firewall, so full application firewall. IPS is new. So we've added in our SourceFire Snort IPS engine, the same engine we use in our next gen firewall, and our next gen IPS, best of breed IPS, is now available in the cloud. CASB, we've had that before, but we did some enhancements, and I'll show you those. SSL decryption, obviously you need that in the cloud. RBI, or remote browser isolation, also new. So you can now very quickly and easily spin up a disposable browser in the cloud, and then the users go to that disposable browser, and it's a transparent, really good experience for them. But the attack surface of their browser is basically brought down to zero. It's very, very low now. I'll show you some of that too. DLP, we now have inline DLP. And then finally, cloud malware detection, which is part of the CASB, but making sure that as they're using file repository SaaS offers like Box, Dropbox, et cetera, that we're scanning those for malware and taking care of business if they have it. Down below is also a new thing with cloud managed remote access VPN. So if they don't want to do traditional remote access VPN on managing your own next-gen firewalls and ASAs, and you can just take those AnyConnect clients, connect them up to the cloud, go through that quick. So let me show you some of this in action here. So here's the Umbrella Cloud. I got a bunch of active networks. These are tunnels going up into the cloud. I have roaming clients as well for that remote worker. Lots of traffic coming through. And I want to take you through what remote browser isolation looks like from a policy perspective. The neat thing about it is it's just part of the web policy. It's web traffic. We're putting a new browser here. So let's just add it to the same rule set that we do with all of our other web policies. It's just a new action. So here I'm going to create a new rule name called Isolate Social Networking. which means anytime they go to social networking, we're going to isolate it. Automatically, we spin up those browsers in the cloud. The customer doesn't have to do anything, manage that in any way. I'm going to do all my Active Directory users. And as I said, I'm going to do it for social networking. So I go into my applications. I'm just going to search for social networking as a category. This is an application category, not a URL category. And then I'm going to save that.
Jamie, may I jump in here with a question?
May.
I want to make sure that that we're understanding this properly. That the Cisco umbrella isn't centrally hosted somewhere. It's hosted in I assume data centers all over the world.
Sure.
So all of the SASE capabilities that you listed, are they also hosted at the same places all over the world, or are some of them located in only specific regions where maybe certain compute capabilities or scaling is available?
That's a great question, Tony. It does vary a little bit. When we roll out new functionality, we roll it out in some phases for probably obvious reasons. But yeah, so at any point in time, there might be a couple data centers around the world that are lagging behind a certain capability that was newly released. On top of that, the only other thing I can think of that is not hosted together is some of the reporting engines. Is part of here, but we strive to have every data center identical.
And my follow-up to that is, and I know this is a security field day. All the field day events try to be not salesy, but Cisco is notorious for having rather complicated licensing and well, I'll just stay with that. What I want to ask you is, when someone wants to leverage SASE and wants to buy it for their enterprise, are they paying for one SKU? Is it multiple SKUs? And then lastly, if they want to pay for geodiversity, like when I buy SASE, are you spinning it up all over the world for me, or am I paying per region?
Yeah, great questions. I need a caveat with that. I am a technologist. I'm an architect, so I don't do the pricing and everything. I happen to know the answer, though. But the licensing for Cisco SASE now it's a single SKU, SASE SKU. We call it a multi-line bundle. So there is flexibility in there where you can say, I want to have these 4 capabilities, but not this one. So there is still some choose your own adventure inside of the licensing. Yes, we do. Once you get that license, you are open to all the data centers that we have in the ecosystem.
That's very cool. Thank you. Awesome.
Got it. All right. So continuing on here with a couple other things.
Jamie, I have a question about
Sure.
the end user device. How do you do posture checking? And what do you do?
That is an excellent question. If you might hold that for a second, we have a demo on it. We'll show it all to you. In fact, that's a big part of what we want to talk to you about today. Thank you. So this is before RBI, just going to CNN. Your browser is doing all the execution of the code, of course. When we look behind the scenes, this is hundreds of lines of executable code that's running. Lots and lots of browser problems out there. After RBI, user experience is identical. This is the number of lines of code, like 20. So you can see your attack surface got greatly diminished. There's no active code in there. Life is much better. Next one I want to show you is DLP. So here's our data classification engine. There's like 85 data identifiers out of the box. I created a rule called sensitive material, dropped a couple in here so you can see it. Bank accounts, it's worldwide as well, so we understand bank account numbers in different countries and whatnot. You can bring in your own custom identifiers, create them on the fly if you want to. I created a bank account number that has a proximity vector inside of it. Here's some confidential watermarks. You can bring in custom dictionaries, and this is looking at DLP inline. So here's a policy example. There's really easy to create a policy, give it a rule name. There's 2 actions. So here we just do a DLP. Monitor means exactly that. Block, yep, it's going to get dropped on the floor. What identities do you want this DLP policy? I'll just grab all the AD users and then my data classification rule. On the destination side, I got multiple applications that I can do this with. So I'm going to select Box and maybe Dropbox. And then you can do an exclusion list if you want to.
I'd like to jump in with a question about DLP.
Sure.
What is the file size limitation on DLP, if there is any?
There is a file size limitation. I don't remember it off the top of my head, so I'll have to get back to you on that one, Tony.
Sure. And then I imagine you guys have to grab the complete file before you start scanning it. You have to reassemble the file itself as it's broken up into packets across the wire. So there's an obvious delay there, right? You have to cache the entire file, scan it, and then decide whether or not it's permitted to pass. That's one of the reasons why I asked my first question just a few minutes ago, is making sure the DLP is with the RBI or is with the SASE onboarding, right? Because if it has to send that DLP back to another continent, we're introducing unnecessary delay. So,
Right.
So I was just curious about that. What kind of as you threw some performance metrics out there, what are the performance metrics for like DLP and things like that?
Yeah, nothing comes for free in this world, so there is a performance hit. But the neat thing about all of the capability sets that we do is we do make sure that they are sized so that there is no one capability that if you turn it on, everything takes a dump, right? Everything just really comes down, like we have with on-prem. I take my next-gen firewall, I turn on decryption, and 80% less performance. So that's something that we take care of for you because it's a cloud service. With the user experience of DLP, though, and I probably should have put a user experience demo. I didn't do that, but you'll see from an end user, definitely no visible delay.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
So the next one is around threat-centric cloud visibility and anti-malware. So this is a app discovery. This is the shadow IT problem. Like, who's going to what? What's the risk for this? So we have risk categories, for all of these things. So you can take a look at the ones that we feel are the most risky. You can approve apps. You can prevent applications. You can look at it from a attack type. So here's a threat breakdown, ransomware, cryptojacking. Here's a ransomware one. It tells you this is WannaCry, exactly who went to the command and control server in this case for WannaCry. And we do break it down on top of mind ones. Here's Sunburst. When Sunburst came out, really big deal, global. We put in a special report just for that. And the last one is cloud malware. So this is about using APIs to scan your boxes, drop boxes, Office 365 for malware. We're using our AMP technology that we have in a lot of other areas, anti-malware technology, tells you the owner, where this document is, a little bit about its exposure level. This one happens to be private, and then the AMP result. You can dive in from there into the sandbox and really see what happened. And then our firewall policy, the IPS settings, real straightforward. Turn on, do I want to detect, do I want to protect? So IDS, IPS, grab your signature set that you want to put in there, and off to the races.
Could you comment a little bit more about the proximity portion of the rule that you were building? Does that just mean that you're doing like geolocation or some sort of geolocation database based off IP, or what do you mean by proximity when you say proximity?
Yeah, good question. So proximity in DLP world means if you're looking for a search term or an identifier, what are some things that are in proximity to that identifier that need to be there in order for you to flag it as a real violation? So if you have a form and on all the forms it says social security number : and then the social security number, then you can tell it, look for this, followed by the identifier, that's a hit. If it's just identifier out there, it might be a false positive. So don't flag it. So umbrella SIG, we have a lot of the CASB use cases now. We don't have all of them yet. Like DLP, we're still working on DLP from an API perspective, and there's still a journey for us there. But we do have the majority of the CASB use cases. We now have SD-WAN integrated with Umbrella. So to get the traffic up into the cloud security stack, got to start there with the connectivity. We can now spin up a virtual Meraki instance in Umbrella data centers all over the world. And it becomes part of your Meraki SD-WAN fabric. So from any of those current SD-WAN fabric nodes, branches, data centers, they can now be part of the exit strategy going up through Umbrella. It makes deployment dead simple. Intelligent routing is now available to you. Traffic steering, all the goodness of SD-WAN, now part of the cloud. A managed service is now being offered for those customers that don't want to manage the typical AnyConnect remote access VPN. We do all the management, and it's hosted in the cloud. So now your users, instead of using AnyConnect to connect back to an on-prem gateway, will just connect to the gateway in the cloud. And then from there, we backhaul it to their private apps. And now I want to set the stage for Brian to give his demo. And this is all about clientless VPN. So ZTNA, like how do we do ZTNA with our technology? And the right-hand side, you'll see this thing called a network gateway. The idea is that from a remote worker, without a VPN, I can bring up my browser, type in internalapp.com. It resolves to the network gateway or network gateways that are in front of my private networks, and then all the magic happens. So with that, Brian, I'll give you a second there to take over and get your demo up.
Thanks. So as Jamie had said, and by the way, I'm Brian Barankoff, I run systems engineering for the Duo business unit, and that's where the network gateway lies. And I'm actually looking at a network gateway in front of my house. It's a very, very lightweight gateway. And what we're going to do is front end some connections to legacy protocols and applications with modern zero trust posturing. And I do know there was a posturing question in here. We're going to get deep into that. What I'm going to focus on is RDP, which is remote desktop protocol, and SMB, which is commonly like the Windows file sharing, sort of mounting a network drive. And you can see I basically have relays to my internal application namespace. This is not externally available for both of these. If I move over to my Duo tenant in the cloud, and I'll zoom in a little bit more here, we can see I have a host of applications for this Duo network gateway. We're going to be using the RDP servers one and the SMB servers one. And for each, I can have a different posture engine for the application as well as the users. I'll just go ahead and click into one of these posture policies that's running on the application. And we can go through and see the intuitive posture profile engine. And I won't go through everything, but there's a dozen or so different controls over here, like which countries can access or not, what the condition of the host OS that's connecting to, in this case RDP, like does it have a firewall on, is it encrypted, password set, is it running an approved antivirus client, and this does work for BYOD devices. We have browsers and operating systems, are they up to date and patched, what MFA methods we can use. At the bottom here, I've also set up step-up authentication. So if the user connects to RDP, will they have to use Face ID or Touch ID on an iPhone, for example?
Can you go back up to those? Are those the only postures you're looking for? And is it done by the AnyConnect client or done by something else?
No, there's a smaller, lighter weight Duo posture client that gives us some of it, and then we're also pulling everything possible under the sun through the web browser. So if you don't have the tool here for it's called the device health application, you'll be prompted to install it. It's a very, very quick, minimal install. But if you don't require users to have it, then we'll collect as much as we can through the
web
browser.
Looking for signed applications and things like that.
We're not, other than our own application, we're not looking for signed applications outside of the endpoints that are in the detection list that we've partnered with.
So let's say if I'm using a browser and it's unsigned, and basically it's a browser with massive amount of malware already installed in it, you may never know. how would I be able to detect that? Because I could be using it for remote observability, remote control, and those things are getting smarter so that they detect that you're on a VPN, collect the data, and then spit it out later.
Right, so we're not doing this over a VPN, obviously, but first of all, we do have device trust set up, which we can identify whether it's a managed device or not. So we can control the BYO exposure, which has a higher risk because it's unknown. For the BYO, we can say that a certified AV client's running. If you're running Cisco Secure Endpoint, which is formerly called AMP, apologize for the older name here, we do share threat intelligence with AMP, and if AMP has seen any compromises of that endpoint, we can just outright block it.
Okay. Thank you.
And there are a lot more postures over here, but for the sake of time, I've only worked on a few to demonstrate just for agility and time's sake. But over here, I have my RDP client. I know it's small, but it's connecting to rdp.external.brianv.net. So when I click on it, what we're going to see is my browser automatically opens up. I get the Duo authentication prompt. We've already collected browser OS information. We've actually talked to the agent over here about what's running on it. I'm going to press push. My iPhone 13 is mirrored over here. As a user, I'm going to say, yes, this is me, Brian, connecting. I'll hit approve, and you'll notice that I don't have any biometrics. And you can see then only then after the green mark, my RDP window opens up. There's really nothing to see there, so don't worry about the small. I'll go back into my posture engine real quick, and I'm going to go ahead and turn on the biometric requirement just to show you how quick the policy is and how easy it is. We'll bring over a Windows host, and again, I know it's a little bit small, but RDP is pretty straightforward. I'm going to connect to the same RDP gateway. We'll see that opens up this browser, which I will make a little bit bigger for you. Actually, it's already identified through the browser that Chrome is out of date because it got updated this morning and I haven't updated it. I'm going to go ahead and send a push again. We'll see the same thing. I'm going to turn my phone a little bit to the side. You'll see it's looking for Face ID. And only when I turn the phone towards me does it go in. And of course, now you can see that I have RDP, this time in full screen. I'll do one more, and I just have a shortcut on my desktop to / /smb external.brianv.net, which is only detectable on this machine that knows about the DNG. But when I click on this or double click on this, just network share shortcut, you can see it's a blank page in the back. I'm going to do the push again. I'm going to do Face ID. And then the second that goes through, we open up the tunnel through the DNG, and we have mounted a share. And I have like a 250 meg installer here. This is going to go through the tunnel. It's not the world's fastest servers because this is running on like a little home theater PC I have at home. I know it's small, but I'm getting like 16 megabytes per second, 15 megabytes per second. It's pretty quick. Go ahead and leave that over here to wrap up the demo. Because seeing is believing. But when I go over to my reports now, we can see basically the entire connection thing. So the first thing I did at 4:33 my time was connect with my Mac OS. We pulled the host name. We know about Chrome, firewall, encryption, password set. We are running Cisco Secure Endpoint, so I could have created a posture policy on all of that. I do not have the right amount of device trust, but we were not posturing for that, and I proved it with a Duo push. Then I went over to Windows. Again, we're collecting the patch version. So if we know, you missed patch Tuesday, we could force somebody to update, got the host name. This one is a valid, trusted, and managed device, so I can give it, higher authority. And then we did the same with the SMB mount. And that's just a few illustrations of both the posturing as well as the type of applications that are supported.
Well, everything you just saw Brian did, we've done at Cisco. So I used to live on my AnyConnect VPN client. I don't bring my VPN client up maybe 3 times a week. That was deployed to 100,000 users, what you just saw, in 5 months for 20 apps in 98 countries. So it's really easy to deploy, and everything you saw, we're using it every single day at scale.